and this will go down as one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity that our period, and this will go down as one of the worst crimes in the history of humanity that our government, the Biden administration and the Trump administration, are complicit in.
Does it go down? Does it go down? We have to debate this.
Yeah, we don't have time.
We actually don't.
Oh, we don't have time for the anti-Israel propaganda.
We don't have
time
for the
It doesn't seem like Abby Phillips is. It doesn't seem like Abby Phillips is really having this line of thought from Emma Vigeland, which is funny because I generally do think she's a decent CNN host, but it's pretty funny to see her cut off that debate and say, we don't have to discuss this, we don't have to debate that, let's move on, essentially, which I thought was pretty funny. And again, kudos to Emma for not giving a shit and for saying it anyway, for bringing up those sort of provocative statements on cable television, because that'll threaten her ability to get invited back on. She knows that too.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what's so important about having a voice and a figure like Emma Vigeland, somebody who can still go on CNN panels, somebody who can kind of transcend, willing to slum it with guys like us, but also, big time as well, and capable of reaching people who are in their suburban homes, people who are the base of the Democratic Party. Those are people who are going to be connecting with what Emma Vigeland said in this exchange. And it's going to further illustrate the fact that the divide between the Democratic Party and old school cable media exists for a reason, right? New media is willing to be honest about issues like Israel-Palestine. New media is willing to confront uncomfortable truths, and old media isn't. They're mostly interested in spreading things over, pretending that we all agree, even if we don't. And for Emma to get up there in prime time and pierce that when a lot of people are going to be at home over the holidays, I thought that was great work.
Say Hamas was wrong at any point during this conversation. Listen, we know that there's there's plenty of disagreement on that issue.
I never said that.
Well, we let it on spool for 2 minutes, but sure. I mean, honestly.
Okay, I have a quick word.
This guy's such a bitch. He's so afraid of debate because he knows he's wrong.
I don't understand. Israel's our ally. Not a single word in your speech for the atrocities that were committed on October the 7th.
We should cut off arms tomorrow.
Not a single word for the idea that Israel has every right to defend itself. Not a single word for the fact that Hamas right now is killing people inside of God, their own people. You seem to lay it all at the feet of Israel, a democratic ally in your own country, and you have no negative word for the terrorists who raped and murdered and kidnapped.
Oh my God, this guy is acting like it's fucking like October 8th. Dude, we all it's been years since that happened, dude. So many atrocities have been committed by your team apparently since then, and you still want to fixate on the atrocities that were committed 3 fucking years ago. None of the ones that have occurred since then. That's wild.
Salem, Israeli human rights group says they're committing genocide.
Guys,
you still don't.
We gotta go. Rita Ninan, thank you very much.
Boom, cut the cord. Hey, we're losing donor money right now. The people upstairs are unhappy. All right, our stock report last quarter was already in the gutter. We can't handle anymore. Abby Phillips, go ahead and pull the plug. But yeah, great work by Emma regardless.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, I mean, we gave Piers Morgan a ton of shit after October 7th for like a solid year. The dude couldn't say a single fucking phrase other than, do you condemn Hamas? But even to Piers' credit, finally, after Israel had literally committed like 100,000 times the killing that Hamas, committed, he finally was like, all right, they've gone too far. Not only have they gone too far, but it's totally okay now to acknowledge that there's atrocities happening on both sides. Again, it's still both sidesism, but at least he's there now. You get to take a guy like Scott Jennings, and he's still like, again, just like it's less than a year after October 7th, he's still just in that mode where he completely has not adjusted his commentary, his analysis, his worldview, anything to the current situation, which, as I said, is that Israel has committed about 100,000 times more bloodshed and murder than Hamas did on October 7th, which everyone fucking condemned, by the way, including Emma Vigeland. Emma Vigeland was not one of these people on October 7th, like celebrating the slaughter of Jews or like the rape of women or whatever. Like, obviously not. To the extent that there was horrific human rights atrocities committed on that day, she was one of the people condemning them.
Yeah, and when you listen to a guy like that or any of these panelists, you realize you're hearing from someone who is being paid to say this, right? You're listening to someone who's not engaging with these ideas authentically or as a thoughtful human being. They're engaging with them as a salesman, as a propagandist, as somebody who has a financial incentive to parrot and continue to parrot one specific word. It's like when you get a guy from a big tech company and put him before Congress, and he has a line of shit that he's supposed to say over and over and over again. So no matter what question you give him, he's going to pivot back to the same refrain that his attorney told him to say. That's what Scott Jennings is doing. That's what any of these other Zionist panelists will do. They will go back. They will pretend October 7th, 2023 was yesterday, and they will pretend that we have to, justify whatever Israel's doing because of the urgency that, no longer is makes sense to have, even if you were to fall for all of the initial propaganda. They basically just treat it like another 9/11, which the Conservative Party in America used to pretend happened yesterday for a fucking 15, 20 years.
Yup, 100%. And obviously, of course, no mention of the fact that Netanyahu is literally out here on TV right now promising to complete the takeover of Gaza, to build up new Israeli infrastructure there, and some for our Palestinian neighbors. Yeah, sure. Obviously, that's a fucking lie. Maybe some jails, maybe some new fucking concentration camps. But outside of that, I don't see any infrastructure getting built for the Palestinian neighbors of the genocidal state of fucking Israel. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. Because again, it's like that worldview that Gaza is ours, as Israel's, that we can take it over, that we can displace as many people as we want, that we can humiliate and slaughter an entire fucking population. I'm sorry, but that's the fucking outlook. That's the ideology that October 7th was a reaction to. So I know that people don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to admit that, yeah, sometimes like these things don't just happen in a vacuum, but they fucking don't. And that's the reason why it happened. So if you're not going to grapple with that at all, then yeah, you literally are just a salesman. You're literally just a fucking talking point machine with no actual critical thought of your own.
Yeah. And in this next exchange, I want to highlight for everyone, I thought that Emma did another great job of disrupting the sales pitch, right? One of the big things that people who are kind of pro-war, the hawkish wings of the Democratic Party and also the MAGA movement, they're really trying to drum up war with Venezuela. They are, trying to talk about how we've got to do something about the drugs. Obviously, you guys remember, if you've been watching the show for a long time, this extends before Trump's second term. Nancy Pelosi having positive meetings with the fake president of Venezuela, Juan Guaido, refusing to acknowledge Nicolas Maduro. This was a bipartisan effort to villainize, sanction, and isolate Venezuela because we wanted access to the oil that they decided to nationalize as a country. It's really compounded, and now they're using this lie that they're trafficking fentanyl, that there's narco terrorism. It's completely absurd. It's patently false. But in this exchange, I think Emma does a really good job of disrupting their framework by reminding everyone that Purdue Pharma killed millions of people domestically, and we did not have the same reaction that we're having to these people who we can't even prove killed anyone in our country at all. And I'll move us over here before we play.
So the average person, yeah, if you have a deep dive conversation about the legal aspects here, they're going to roll their eyes. That's just the reality. It might be important, and it is important.
But
they roll their eyes because they know who the target is.
The Sacklers are...
Donald Trump is putting you in a position.
I'm sorry.
You're now defending drug dealers. Whether or not that's your intent, that's how it comes on.
Do you think that the Sacklers should be executed in the town square?
I don't think this is the town square, and I don't think that this is a declaration of war. As we've heard specifically tonight, this was an empty facility, no deaths, and I would assume that this was leaked to CNN with this information that came from the CIA, that if it wasn't actually a drug distribution center, a port, probably would have come out too.
Being a fucking drug dealer does not give anyone the excuse to just murder you. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's not how we treat the drug dealers that are American citizens, domestic drug dealers. Like, they still get a trial. They still have to be proven guilty. Why are we all just all of a sudden supposed to accept that we get to kill drug dealers, right? Like, this was that post 9/11 war on terror logic that was directed at terrorists, right? Because you could, I guess, sufficiently scare people and be like, well, if we don't take away their rights to a trial, and if we just are allowed to extrajudicially assassinate them or murder them or whatever, then there's not going to be another 9/11. But this is drug dealing. Like, what the fuck? I guess that's why they had to invent the term narco-terrorism, something that doesn't even make any fucking sense. Like, what, are you going to drop cocaine on the World Trade Center or something? Like, what the fuck does narco-terrorism even mean? But it's still so crazy that we're all just supposed to accept that, precedent going out the window for a trial to actually prove someone guilty before punishing them, let alone murdering them, punishing them at all.
It is absolutely insane. And you're so right, Gavin. it's illegal, it's criminal, it goes against everything that we've ever stood for as a country, as a nation. People who say they support and love the Constitution, willing to absolutely set it on fire, right? You're entitled to a defense, you're entitled to a jury, you're entitled to make your case, you're entitled to confront your accuser. These are all things that as an American we're supposed to take for granted because they're so baked into the cake. What Donald Trump is doing is he's inching us towards the insane militarism of a nation like the Philippines. I've been to the Philippines. Rodrigo Duterte is in The Hague right now. The former president of the Philippines is in The Hague right fucking now for doing what Donald Trump is doing. He did a literal war on drugs in the Philippines where they would just fucking kill you in the street if you were accused of being a drug dealer. It was absolute chaos. They would target both drug distributors and drug users. It was extremely violent. And guess what? It was also terribly, terribly ineffective. So not only was it a major human rights violation, not only was it a global scandal, not only is it, a horrible stain, on a beautiful country, but it is also exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do now and what guys like this are cheerleading for to come domestically next. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just such lazy logic from this piece of shit. Such a hack debate tactic to be like, oh, so you're defending drug dealers? No, that's not what she's fucking doing. Emma Vigeland doesn't believe in the death penalty. Neither do I. That doesn't mean I'm defending the people who I think shouldn't get murdered for the crimes they committed. I also don't think fucking child rapists should get the death penalty because I'm against the death penalty. That doesn't mean I'm defending rapists. You know what I'm saying? That's just a consistent understanding of fucking, your moral compass as it relates to crime and punishment. It's not defending the criminal.
We killed dozens of people already under this pretense. So do you defend?
We killed dozens of people who were on drug boats, bringing drugs to this country to kill Americans.
Did the Sacklers help kill Americans with the opioid epidemic? Yes or no?
So that is a completely separate issue. But
how is it separate? Should they be executed in the town square without any legal process? And that's what you're saying.
Who's next on the drug cartel here?
I don't know why.
Do we go to China as well? Do we go to other countries as well? How far are we going to go on this? How hard and how long can they?
So we should go to China? Is that what he's saying? She's like, should we go to China and try to take out the fentanyl production happening there too? And he's like, we should do whatever in the best interest of the fucking American people. Imagine that. Imagine if we took this piece of shit's advice and sent American troops to China, start bombing fucking Chinese boats, alleged drug boats. Right? I mean, that would be crazy. That would start fucking World War III, all in the name of, again, taking out narco terrorism, something that doesn't even fucking exist.
And it's not a problem from Venezuela, guys. That's the other thing. We're not getting loads and loads of fentanyl trafficked from Venezuela. That is made up. It is a lie. And that is the last thing I really want to harp on for everyone. You're going to hear all kinds of stuff about should we or shouldn't we, or is it justified if they're drug dealers? It doesn't matter because they're not fucking drug dealers. That's why we're bombing their shit to smithereens. Or do you know what you do when you don't want there to be any evidence? When you don't want a trial? When you don't want anybody to be able to do an independent audit of what went down? Oh, can we do an autopsy of the body? No, because we blew it all to smithereens in the middle of the deep fucking ocean. Okay. Do you know why they're doing that? Because they don't give a fuck about these guys and they're trying to create the illusion that they're doing something productive for the American people because Donald Trump's polling at 30% approval ratings right now and it's a fucking disaster. Everybody hates him. He's listening to the worst people in the room who are saying, hey, do this distraction because we hate Venezuela. You guys forgot he made Marco Rubio his Secretary of State. That's who's behind this shit. Pete Hegseth, that's who's behind this shit. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about anything. He's Sleepy Joe now. He doesn't know where the fuck he is, right? So they've made up this story, this elaborate con. Here's why we hate Venezuela, because they want to go to They want to go to war with Venezuela. We've been sanctioning them to shit for a decade now. Okay, because we want their fucking oil. And Donald Trump is going to go in there and he's going to claim, oh, we got their fucking oil. And look, we did something about communism. Okay, it's bad advice. It's not going to be effective to, boost his approval rating. But that's what people are telling him. So he's made up this weapons of mass destruction style con that these people are making fentanyl and trafficking it into the country. The reason we don't go after China is because, one, we don't give a fuck about the fentanyl crisis. And two, China has nukes and they can fight back. So that's the end of this clip right here. And then I think there's one more portion here if you have anything to add before we play it.
Yeah, let's take a look.
And so the consequences that you're talking about are incredibly dire. But I also just like want to step back for a second and look at the justifications that they're even using. They're saying that these are narco terrorists, et cetera. And that's the Republican line. But then Trump comes out and goes, it's for the oil. I mean, like when we did our illegal invasion of Iraq and killed hundreds of thousands of people there, at least the Bush administration had like the humility to pretend and go to the United Nations and say, oh, we're going to do this through the regular channels. I mean, this brazen bully illegal administration doesn't even go through that pretense. And I think that should scare everybody because their foreign policy is might makes right. And that's all that matters.
So I'm not scared. I don't think any American is scared about the consequences.
I care about the world.
Are you sure? Because their guys' approval ratings in the shitter right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are really worried about the consequences of not invading Venezuela. What the fuck? That's a crazy thing to say. But yeah, I mean, Emma's 100% right. Trump is totally following the direction, following the example of his buddies Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu, both of which have also just, blatantly embraced the whole might is right argument. Oh, you're our, powerless neighbor. We can fuck you over and there's nothing you can do about it. We don't give a shit about, international law. We don't give a shit about the modern world and, humanitarianism. No, fuck it. Let's go full old school imperialist. And I think Trump is inspired by that. Obviously, not only the belligerence of Vladimir Putin, but also how Netanyahu and his cronies do just say the quiet part out loud constantly to their citizenry in Israel, right? It's just nauseating the degree to which they're so honest versus how they try to spin these lies to the rest of the international community. So yeah, I think Trump is totally just taking a cue from them, taking their example, and he's like, yeah, I can do the same shit.
Not just Americans.
No, I know, but you're also in this instance caring about a narco-terrorist group and government.
No evidence
that supports
provided.
Them. There's been no evidence showing that they're not actually drug boats that are being sent
That's not
here.
how this works.
We do know, as a matter of fact.
Oh, well, we have no evidence that they committed this crime. Well, you don't have any evidence that they didn't commit the crime. It's like, do you not care about rule of law? Do you have no concern for the Constitution? Like, this asshole is going to be one of those guys who's like, I love the Constitution. I swear to God, I'll defend it with all my might. And it's like, well, you don't fucking seem like you want to defend it right now, asshole.
That this is a country that very clearly does engage in narco-terrorism and is a hub for sending to this country cocaine primarily, meth, which is the second leading cause of drug overdose deaths.
We make meth in this country, you fucking dumbass.
At least where I'm from.
Oh my.
No, it's meth too. That's pretty funny. I thought it was like fucking fentanyl or whatever, but apparently it's meth too. All right. Well, that's pretty funny. Emma makes a great point too. Like the propaganda rollout to justify this, the attempt to manufacture consent for this war, it's not going quite as well as it did, to justify the war in Iraq. And not that they did a brilliant job, in retrospect, it's pretty crazy that anyone fell for the whole weapons of mass destruction thing. But really it was just a fear, right, of another terrorist attack happening. The whole nation was traumatized. No one had ever really seen or experienced anything like that in the modern, American society, seeing a fucking terrorist attack on that scale in such a visual way, in the skyline of New York City. People were traumatized. They probably could have been convinced to go to war with just about anyone, just about any country, especially in the Middle East. But now it's like, yeah, obviously the drug epidemic sucks. Like everyone knows someone that has been lost to fentanyl, or, everyone knows of someone who's been lost to fentanyl. But I don't think it's to the point where like Americans are just bloodthirsty and ready to go to war with fucking Venezuela over it. Again, I don't think we're at that level of like trauma as it relates to the fentanyl crisis. Yeah, there is trauma, but again, I feel like people are more angry at Big Pharma. They're more angry at the Sacklers and those kind of companies for getting their loved ones and relatives hooked on opiates in the first place, which then maybe led to fentanyl down the line. They're more mad at the pharmaceutical companies than they are at fucking random narco terrorists in Venezuela. That's such bullshit.
Yeah, it's not the first time. It's actually quite common that an American president runs on a peace agenda and then engages in a bunch of superfluous warmongering, right? That's kind of been the recipe our country's been operating off of since World War II and even a little bit before then. But, you have like a base of people who say what you will about MAGA. I feel like one of the core tenets that I do hear a lot of them say often is America first. Now, we have very different definitions of what would be good for America, but it does come across as an anti-war faction of the Republican Party if you're examining it from the base and what the base wants. Like, they wanted no more endless wars overseas. That was a constant refrain. And actually, when Donald Trump was succeeding, when he was really in touch with his base, that's what he was messaging about a lot. He was talking about how NAFTA was a fucking disgrace. This is 10 years ago when he was really on the up and up. He was talking about how NAFTA was a disgrace, how Hillary Clinton's husband did NAFTA, and we couldn't do that again. But he was also talking about the illegal wars. That's how he went after the Bushes. That's how he went after Jeb. That's how he went after the old guard of the Republican Party during that primaries. He was like, these were the guys that completely bungled the last 20 years of American foreign policy, that made us broke, that they humiliated us on a global stage. These wars were a disaster, yada, yada, yada. That was messaging his base really enjoyed. So it hasn't been a very smart maneuver. I would say particularly dumb, given the fact that his base and the opposition base both want to be done with these, wars of aggression, these bullying campaigns that we've been on as a nation for the last 45 fucking years in parts of Central and South America. We want to be done with all of that. And he's decided, no, actually, I'm going to do everything that I campaigned against.
Yup, 100%. I totally agree. Yeah, a lot of MAGA, a lot of the most hardcore MAGA base is actually, they don't want anything to do with these wars, partially because, as I said, a lot of that generation was traumatized into, thinking the Iraq war was a good idea. A lot of them either went and served in that war or know people that went and served in that war, only for them to find out a few years later that it was all bullshit, that weapons of mass destruction was all a lie. I mean, speaking of trauma, that has to be the most horrific thing to deal with psychologically ever, right? The only way you could deal with the psychological horror you experience in war is to think like, oh, well, it had to be done. There was a moral necessity. I was on the right side of a good versus evil battle for civilization or my homeland or something. That's the only way you can justify it if you're a normal, decent person who's not a total sociopath. So to get home and then hear, oh, it was all bullshit, it was all a lie, it was all for oil. Yeah, of course that's going to radicalize you against basically any future fucking war, specifically one that doesn't have a damn good justification behind it, like this bullshit in Venezuela. Same with the shit in Iran, which is why, again, I just feel like a lot of the people that are even part of the MAGA coalition, they're just done with it. They don't want to see another Iraq situation. And again, the excuses this time around are even shittier than they were back in the Bush era. But either way, great job from Emma Vigeland. She absolutely kicked ass on CNN, doing exactly what she should do, what any left-wing progressive commentator should do when given the opportunity to speak to the masses on a platform like CNN, to be broadcast into the living rooms of normies all around the fucking country. Not just us progressives or the kind of people that would normally tune into the Majority Report, but broad swath of the public, right? And I think that any normie, someone who's not already extremely ideologically committed to like, I love war or whatever, I think they watch that and they're going to come away with the obvious conclusion that Emma Vigeland slayed all the competition and totally came away from that, looking the best of all the panelists.
Yep, completely agree. Sign off on that. And it's just, exciting to think of people being stuck at the airport. Like, I was at the airport forever yesterday, and there was the news on TV. CNN was one of them. I think Fox News was on one of the TVs, which is crazy to me. I think it was like Business Channel or something like that. Either way, CNN was on, and I was like, wow, wouldn't it be crazy if somebody was, watching, for the first time, getting exposed to that? And it's like, oh man, that's a good foray into the Majority Report, get you exposed to lefty independent media. So it's really, really valuable what Emma's doing when she goes on that show.
Oh yeah, totally killing it. I hope she gets invited back because, again, clearly she takes the opportunity to actually spread a substantive and aggressive left-wing anti-Trump message, which is really important. One last thing I wanted to take a look at really quickly before we move on to the scandal implicating Dr. Rashad Ritchie. I thought this was pretty funny from the Majority Report. From the Damage Report. John Iadarola is the Damage Report. He actually covered this segment yesterday. Conservative loses it after Emma Vigeland drops horrific war reality check on CNN. And I thought that was kind of funny, obviously, given the fact that Cenk and Anna both hate Emma Vigeland. They both have public beef at this point. So I did pretty funny. I did think it was pretty funny to hear John say this.
And having a bully like the Russian government invading their sovereign territory.
So that right there was last night on CNN. Emma Vigeland, obviously, formerly on the Damage Report, making what seems like an indisputable point about the genocide and how our support for the genocide hurts our.
They're right, pretty funny stuff. Clearly, John doesn't have any bad blood with Emma. Clearly, he thinks she's still a valuable member of the progressive commentariat.